So, hello and welcome. My name is Steve Pugh. I might know some of you, I might not. I do various different podcasts on different kind of channels. They're generally kind of business related, all to do with your career and stuff like that. And one of the things that I was looking for recently was actually to get one guest on to talk about mental health. And I put a post out on Twitter and LinkedIn quite recently to ask if anyone knew anyone that could be, an interesting kind of guest to talk to. And one of the things that really kind of stood out was actually the sheer response in terms of numbers and stuff, and everyone had a recommendation. And one of the things that's really kind of struck with me in the past kind of week or so since I've kind of started to work this all up, so this is going to be its own standalone thing on Twitter and YouTube and stuff, was actually just I think it's a really important topic for people to talk about. But likewise with the looming kind of recession, I think there'll be a lot of people that will go through a really tough time over the next year, 2 years, that actually it's the perfect time to kind of do it. And because I have a bit of a platform and I have streaming stuff, this isn't about me, it's about the guest. And then likewise, why just pick one person to share one kind of viewpoint when you can speak to multiple kind of people? And then as a typical bloke, I am A1 guilty, as my wife will tell you, is that it's not that I don't talk to people, but I kind of don't. And it's that balance of where this is a bit of a discovery for myself. I don't know how it's going to go and that kind of thing, but actually I'm genuinely interested in the guest. So Simon, who I'm going to introduce you to today, I've actually been a fan of his for a long time, what he does, and we're going to go into that kind of thing, but he's also very open about his journey. And then over the course of the next few weeks, we've got guests booked in till about November, I think. It's going to be a mix between mental health professionals and just different people from different backgrounds, with the hope is that if you tune in and just listen to different people's stories from different parts of the world and that kind of thing, it might resonate, it might not, but the point is to almost feel that it's not just you're not alone, and actually other people have been through similar stuff and hopefully got through it. So that's the premise, that's what we're going to do. If you have any comments or questions or anything or things of support, please kind of throw it in the chat, it should kind of pop up. And so I'm just going to dive in. So Simon, yes, everyone can now see you and hear you.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody.
It is. I normally do them on Mondays, and it really throws me off because you have a general spiel, and I'm completely on my kind of comfort zone today. But I think the other side to it as well is that I can talk for England, but this is a genuine topic which is new to me. So I think I kind of bring that with the intent to both have a good interview, but actually ask questions because I don't know the answer, which hopefully is quite interesting. Would you be happy to give a quick kind of few minutes just on who you are, where you're from, just to kind of set the scene?
Yeah, of course. So, my name's Simon Bourne. I'm often known as the shoe guy. That came about really because people would stop me in the street and go, "Are you the shoe guy?" Like they didn't know my name; they just knew me as the shoe guy, and it became quite something that I inherited and just sort of enjoyed. And my business is we create bespoke shoes, so one-off handmade artisan shoes for professionals and for grooms and special birthdays and that sort of thing, through a really sort of innovative and creative co-collaborative retail experience. So yeah, that's who I am.
Because I must admit, you've got a really interesting background. I watched the excellent interview you did with one of my friends, Ashley King, who also presents on this channel. And it's funny because she has the hats, you have the shoes. Yeah. But what I've really enjoyed and what I really kind of love about longer form content like a podcast is that in 2 minutes or 60 seconds, it's hard to get a real vibe and take on someone. But actually over the 40 minutes or whatever that one was, I really felt that I got to get a really good feel for you and almost your own kind of journey. And then likewise, because you are quite creative, you've been a photographer in the past, You do all this really interesting stuff. But with this being like a mental health related kind of podcast, in your own words, what's your kind of history or experience of that?
Of mental health?
Yeah.
So I guess it's a very sort of complicated. I think most people would describe mental health and their journey with mental health is complicated, and I'm probably no different. I grew up in a family of 6 siblings, including myself, which brings its own challenges in terms of sort of finding your place. It was a step family, so there was sort of 2 families merging together, and that sort of dynamic that is often quite tricky to navigate. I'd moved from Lincolnshire up to County Durham, so I moved from my home to a brand new place and this, that, and the other. And I found sort of throughout my teenage years, quite unsettled and quite didn't really know my place, and subsequently became known as a troublemaker and an attention seeker and that type of thing. And that sort of, I guess, bred my biggest problem when it came to mental well-being, and that was insecurity. So throughout my 20s, I would say, I'm 37 now. Throughout my 20s, I was completely insecure. Everything, nobody would ever know it to look at me. They would think I was the life and soul of the party. I was expressive, I was extrovert, I would wear all the clothes nobody else would wear. I would dye my hair all the colors that nobody else would dye it. I would cut it in very hybrid haircuts. And I describe it as a haircut because it probably wasn't a cut at all. It was just something I'd made up. But it was all driven from a naturally quite an ugly place. It was driven from an insecure place. I was trying to fit in. I was trying to stand out. I was trying to make something of myself and be seen as if I was. It gave me some sort of worthiness. So and that spilled over into my professional life, into my private life with my now wife. Luckily, she stayed with me for some reason throughout those years, and I was massively insecure in our relationship, and it drove jealousy, it drove sort of anger, all these sort of ugly habits, if you like. And that then I guess the recovery from it, and I say the recovery because it's still always there, but certainly the recovery from the insecurity probably came with maturity, age, getting married, having kids, getting a mortgage, all of that sort of found my purpose. But then the biggest change for me was creating the business and becoming my own boss with responsibilities. It empowered me. It empowered me to speak and enabled me to sort of find my voice and what it was worth. And that completely transformed the insecurity into actually almost like a power. It's like it's now something that I use in a positive way rather than something that drives anger and frustration and disappointment and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I think complicated is the word.
But I think it's so true that when you were saying about, so I was bullied at school. So basically we grew up quite poor. And growing up in Liverpool, it was almost where my mum raised two boys and she worked multiple jobs and she was a cleaner for a bit and she just did her best. But it was, I remember at school, kickers, because I'm 2 years older than you, but kickers were like the thing at school. And obviously we had a standard uniform, but your shoes were like and your trainers stroke sports kit for PE. And it was, I remember, getting bullied at school, and it was that balance. So for me, for a long time, and realistically, probably until maybe my 30s, a lot of it was actually trying to prove to people I'm not poor anymore. Does that sound really? But I kind of get it. But it was only when I remember I was actually talking to one of my friends who's in Aberdeen, Megan, and it was at a certain point where I twigged that the reason why I was always chasing nice cars and stuff, it was, yes, I wanted them, but actually it was the kid inside of me that was getting bullied at school that wanted to kind of make it stop. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it's just,
I think if you use that, I always call it superpowers. Like if you use those superpowers for good to enable you to maybe earn a nice car or whatever, as long as you recognize that you're not proving anything to anybody else other than yourself, then it becomes healthy rather than unhealthy. And that's something I try and sort of consider all the time because I've been guilty of it. And I'll come on to some other stuff with the business shortly, but I've been guilty of chasing the dream and then wondering, well, what dream am I chasing and why am I chasing it? And it is maybe because of other people rather than because of what I am. And then once I sort of evaluate that and kind of come back to it, and I go, well, maybe it is that, but also it is for myself. It's something that like it's a moment of recognition and proving something to myself that like actually I can do that. Why can't I do that? And that's really satisfying when you set those big goals and you kind of go after them and get them. So yeah, it works both ways, I think.
I think one of the things that I kind of completely get when you were saying before about how trying to find your own path, if that makes sense, is that figure out what do I want to do that makes me happy. And I think I was quite naughty at school as well. And it's rebellion for this. It's funny because I don't know about you, but almost naively when I was younger, I didn't even know I was doing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then when you look back in hindsight and you think, when I was 24, why did I do that? Why didn't I let? And the truth is, I just didn't know better. And then
Yeah,
likewise, that being raised by my mum. My mum will work all day, every day, and we, of course, we've had family challenges, everyone has. But genuinely, until maybe, I don't know, 5, 7 years ago, I never even heard the term mental health.
yeah,
And even up until I was at uni and probably doing my postgrad, so probably 22, 24, I had never, as far as I'm aware, actually met and really figured out that people have mental health problems in a way that I just never been exposed to it. People had them, but I
yeah,
just didn't, I didn't twig, oh shit, that's what that is. And
yeah,
it's just, but it's funny because if you don't know, you don't know. And it's,
yeah.
you often look back and you're like, why didn't I twig on quicker? Why didn't I handle it differently? But it is kind of different.
Yeah, it is fascinating how like you say, um, certainly when I was at school and in my early 20s, like mental health, it just wasn't a thing, was it? It
Yeah,
was
yeah,
just, if somebody had depression, for example, they were just depressed. That was it. They're just depressed. It almost wasn't an illness. It wasn't a condition of any kind or anything. It was just they're just depressed.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and yeah, like I say, it can only be a good thing that these things are becoming more uh, prominent in sort of regular language and speak, and mental health first aiders and things like that in the workplace. And yeah, it can only be a good thing.
because one of the things that people always say is, you should talk to someone. And there was Paddy the Baddy recently in his MMA fight, which has been everywhere. But it's that balance of where one of his mates killed himself.
Yeah.
And I've got friends who've been through something very, very similar. And it's that balance of, for you, at what point what was it like when you felt it was just you and it was internal? And then at
Yeah.
what point did you who was the first person you kind of told or, opened up to?
So my worst moment of my life was on the 23rd of December, 2 days before Christmas gone. So 21st, 2021. Uh, Shortly, a couple of days before that, my sister, who was my last remaining employee, um, who'd been with me through all the good times and all the sort of thrills and awards and Dragon's Den and all this sort of stuff, told me that she had another job, and I knew it was the best thing
Yeah.
for her, but it didn't make the pain any less severe, because for me that was kind of like, well, what's left now? I'd gone from like a thriving company. It was doing, it was making headwaves on social media.
Mm-hmm.
It was billed as the next big retailer by Klarna. It was on Dragon's Den. Export was growing. We were doing really, really well. I'd just gone through a big recruitment drive. And we'd gone from like a team of 4.5 down to back to me, and going back to me, it just felt like I've come all that way for nothing.
Yeah.
And by this point, I was over £100,000 in debt. I couldn't afford it. Couldn't afford to repay it. I knew that the business was doomed at that moment, and the personal consequences were going to be pretty severe. So on the 23rd of December, I had a breakdown, completely collapsed, and I wanted to die. I wanted to hang myself, and that was just, despite the fact that I have two wonderful kids, a wonderful wife who is like the best thing in the world, and now I can stand here and despite the fact and sit here and say I still have lots of prospects ahead of me
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah,
lots
of
of
course.
exciting stuff that I'm kind of sort of gearing towards, sort of regurgitating, starting again, if you like. And but in that moment, it was just that there was nothing, there was no hope left for me.
Yeah.
It was just a total disaster, and I felt guilty, and I felt like I'd just been the greediest, most selfish man in the world, and I'd ruined my children's lives and my wife's life, chasing this hypothetical dream that I didn't even know what the dream really was. I was just doing this and running and trying, and yeah, I completely collapsed. And in that moment, I think this went on for maybe 2 or 3 hours of just like rolling around on the floor in agony, you know. And
Were you on your own at the time?
I was on my own. Yeah, I was on my own in this room, and I was staring at what I call the golden noose, which is a curtain tie. It's this golden dangling thing, and I've now called it the golden noose, like as if it's some sort of carrot, you know, like. And it was like I felt like it was seducing me. It was asking me to sort of come, but I knew that if I got out of the spot that I was in to walk towards it, that was a commitment. And so therefore I couldn't move. I was like frozen to the ground, and I was like, I can't move, because if I get out of this chair now and make my way over to that curtain tie, then there's only one thing going to happen. And so I just couldn't move. So that, you know, that in itself probably was a subconscious act of knowing that I didn't really want to die. I was just in agony, you know. And to answer your question, my wife was the person I reached out to. It would always be her. It would always be her. She's a midwife. She works for the NHS at Gateshead Queen Elizabeth Hospital. And she has been my rock throughout the whole thing and throughout my whole life, really. And I sent her a text, and the text was 2 words long, and it just said, "I'm beat." And to which she then rang me. So she must have been carrying a phone, which she normally doesn't do, but she knew obviously I wasn't particularly well that day. And she rang me, and she just said, "Stay where you are. I'll be with you in half an hour. I'm on my way. Just stay where you are." So I did. And that was, I guess, the turning point of when she walked in.
Yeah. I think it's really difficult because I get it, you know, as in, like, I think a lot of men will have at times felt some, you know, level of that. And I think it's that balance of when you sent the text, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So what happened next? How did you just, you know, get through the next day? How did you get through that day? Does that make sense?
Well, yeah. So the day sort of carried on. She came, we sat, we talked, we hugged. I can't tell you what I said. I can't remember. All I know, the only thing I can remember saying repetitively was sorry, apologising that this was happening. And I was quite fortunate that a customer of mine was due to see me on that afternoon, and I'd cancelled them, knowing fine well that I wasn't able to do this. And he called me about, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes before he was supposed to have met me. And I couldn't answer the phone. Obviously, I was just in a bit of a mess, and my wife Lauren answered it. And then yeah, we had that conversation, and he actually was on his way to come and see me. He came in, he sat down, we spoke, and then he subsequently sort of helped me as well, like guided me through and told me that he'd been in a similar place, and that was, I guess, the turning point. That's what got me to the end of the day, just sort of having those two people by my side and helped me through it.
Because one of the things that I remember you said in Ashley's podcast was actually to do with almost the kindness of strangers.
Yeah.
And was it? This sounds really stupid, but I think find it easier talking to my wife excluded, but I'd still find the barrier to open up harder or higher with people I know. But likewise, you know, just to kind of get things off your chest, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think sometimes talking to strangers is a billion times easier.
Yeah.
There's no emotional connection. You're not hurting anybody, are you? By you know, to talk to your wife, to tell her those are the things that you're thinking about is
it's tough.
It's almost like a double-edged sword, isn't it? Like, you know that she's getting upset, she's getting, you know, worried about things, and so yeah, it's sometimes a lot easier to talk to strangers. So in that moment, it certainly was. It was between the two of them having that emotional support from Lauren, but then the logical support from that customer was the two things multiplied together to form the perfect remedy for what I was feeling in that moment.
Yeah, because the whole point of doing this and talking about it is that obviously I'm guessing you're feeling a bit better now.
Yeah, tons better. I mean, like, I'm able to do this podcast. I'm able to talk about it. You know, I was for a long time. 23rd of December was one day. There was another similar day around sort of the the turn of the year. And then there's been a few sort of tough days since then as well. But largely part of doing the recording with Ashley, doing this with yourself, is for myself to be able to essentially own it and to know that this happened, and just to kind of express it in a way that hopefully can help other people, and sort of use that superpower for good. Like, I had that experience. It was awful. I wish it hadn't happened, but at the same time it did. So now it's kind of like, well, what do I do with it? I can either just box it away and forget about it and sort of hide behind it, or I can sit here on a podcast and talk to yourself and use it for good. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. So I'm trying to get that message out and sort of share the story and be open and honest, and hopefully, like I say, it resonates with people, and other people can get something from it.
Well, I guarantee that they will, because I've got friends that were in the army and they went through PTSD and lots of different kind of stuff, and everyone's going to have a different story.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that's really important is, as I said at the start, because I had never been exposed to people, as far as I knew at the time, with different challenges, I wouldn't have known where to look, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And
scrap that phone.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
We're live.
It's fine.
I think I've just got somebody at the door. Just one second, Steve.
No worries. Just while Simon's gone to get the door, and these things happen, it's a live broadcast. It is what it is. Oh, yeah, I must say it's a really interesting one, just because when someone pours their heart out, you want to do the best you can and talk it through and try not get emotional yourself. But it's tough, but hopefully, people will kind of resonate. If you've got any questions or anything for Simon or the other Simon, thank you for tuning in as always. Please kind of let me know in the comments. And then, yes, in the future, it's funny when you're trying to fill time, but likewise, it's the balance of, we've got people lined up who are doctors, who are mental health professionals, who work in lots of different areas. And the hope genuinely is that actually just we, can hopefully share a little bit of information to actually people I resonate with it. I get it. I've never been that kind of lower in that position, but it doesn't mean that I don't get it. And the truth is, I think a lot of blokes and a lot of people will, especially when you've been through like a tough time, if that kind of makes sense. So that's the whole point of kind of doing this and trying to do what we do, and hopefully people find it interesting. I'm going to keep talking. I do find it funny, just because I'm one of these people. I get it from mom, but I do get quite upset with stuff. I get quite emotional, that it's sometimes harder to kind of not cry, but it is what it is. But it's I can hear them coming back, so I'm just gonna
Sorry about that, guys.
No worries. It was a casual fill for 2-3 minutes, and I've done it before.
You did well. Sorry about that, everybody.
But like the part of the reason again why I wanted to do this in long form content is because I hate things that are just clickbait headlines. I think the narrative and the backstory really kind of helps set the scene and stuff. So like, it was obviously you've got an incredible wife and a family and that kind of thing, and almost the balance of, through being able to go through something and almost come out the other side of it, I would imagine that just helps build your superpower, and the ability that if somebody else, because I know for a fact that there'll be people that will probably be 100 times more comfortable now to reach out to you than they ever would have been, and you could be that one person, because you are very well known, that could save someone's life. It really genuinely could.
I've had it, actually. I had a guy message me just maybe about a week ago, telling me that he is petrified that he's going bankrupt, and that his business was failing, and sort of the consequences that was going to bring for him. So I shared my story with him, told him I am bankrupt. I'm sitting here now as a bankrupt. I'm still breathing the same air. I'm still, shaving the same beard. I'm still pushing the same blood around my body. It doesn't really change a great deal in terms of this and what you are. We ended up on a call for maybe like 20 minutes, half an hour, something like that. And I sort of shared my story sort of deeper with him, and he told me a bit about his circumstance, and I was able to sort of give him a bit of guidance on sort of what's happened to me and how I kind of managed to get through it, and what the process of bankruptcy is, and that sort of thing, because I think that, as much as anything, is quite a scary thing. I mean, like, unless you've been through it, it's just a dirty word, isn't it? Nobody really knows what does it mean. So yeah, I've had it already, and I think, like I say, being able to do things like this, do a podcast and talk about it, and hopefully, like, people can watch it, resonate with it, and if I can help anybody, then obviously, like, get in touch, and I would love to, if I could help stop somebody staring at a golden noose, that's
Yeah.
that's
Almost like,
amazing.
so I have a close family that went, through the bankruptcy process a while back. And it's true that what is important, I think, to me and most people, it's the character of the person that you go through it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And, all of us, anyone can go through times of challenge that, something happens that you don't expect, negative equity, it could be anything, that, especially with a potential recession coming, that is out of your control. And, I've seen it in the past where it can domino. So one thing happens, you might completely out of control, the company's going to shut, but then you can't get a job, but then you might struggle to get another job. Your mortgage repayments are due, your gas bill's there. And that's why, especially now, I want to talk about this, just because there will be people that are worrying about paying for kids and, their Christmas and stuff. So if you're happy to share it, almost what things did you find that really helped you move forward? Just again, for other people, tips and advice, places they can look.
I think so it is very cliche, but speaking to people, because it's actually like, people say to me all the time, and they've said it for years, like that the best thing you can do is to talk to somebody, to let it go, to get it off your chest. And quite often I sort of respond to that and go, who the hell wants to listen to my shit? Like, who wants to listen to me moaning on about worries about whatever, accountancy or marketing or the business sales, all this sort of stuff. And it's incredibly sort of hard to sometimes find the right person to talk to. However, the counterbalance of that is that when you do find those people, and those people are like, like I say, they could be strangers, they can be people in the local shop, they can be a family member or a best friend or a school friend or anybody. All of a sudden you realize how many other people have been in similar boats, whether that's through a divorce or whether that's through a business collapse or whether that's been through, financial troubles, debts, things like that. So many people been through shit in their lives and really really bad stuff. Like, I look at mine now and I kind of just go, well, mine's not that bad compared to somebody who might be going through a separation and's got 3 children and their partner's moving to the other end of the country or something like that, and then don't know when they're going to see their children, and like things like, or worse, like death, like people's children die, like, and that's just horrific. And what's my worry? My worry is bankruptcy. I've got a bad credit rating. Do you know what I mean? I've got to deal with some assets and stuff that I might potentially lose, but I'm still alive and I've still got my kids and I've still got my wife, and I can go again. And I'm fortunate that the business still continues, and I can still work for it. So yeah, what got me through it, and it is a case of talking to people, and it is a case of like opening up to as many, in my case, as many people as are willing to listen. Do you know what I mean? And then sort of drawing that tiny little bits of advice and compassion from people to then enable you to find the strength to get through. And I guess really now, in terms of where I'm at now with the process, I mean, it's 4 months since I was declared bankrupt. It's 8 months since I knew that I was probably going to go bankrupt, since Christmas, basically, since that moment. And, I'm now in a position where I've come so far through it and I've had that many conversations that I'm strong enough to be able to sit here and do this podcast. And I think that tells you exactly my thoughts on it. It is about openness. It's about owning it and just not being ashamed of it and not hiding behind it. So imagine the first day that I wrote on Facebook in front of all my family and all my friends and all the people who I've never seen for like the last 20 years, old school friends and this, that, and the other. And I put it on Facebook, and I tried my hardest, gone bankrupt in so many words, and actually then, what is it to lose when you do that? You've done it, you've owned it. Like, it's on if anybody wants to judge you on that, that's on them. Surely that's not on you. And I know that I did my very best, and I tried to do the right things, and I was never greedy, and I was never selfish. Like I thought I was on the 23rd of December. And in fact, what I did was just try my best, and here I am today.
Cool. I must have, but like you always were like massively well respected, and people love the shoes, they love the creativity, they love you. And if anything, now they're gonna love you even more, which is just true. They just will.
Well, I hope so. That's very kind. Very much. Thank you.
But one of the things that I also find quite funny, because you're obviously very active on socials, as I kind of do, and some other people do. And what's really funny is that there will be, I think you've got 20,000 followers. You have your regular cohort of people that you interact with, but there will be thousands of people that have always had respect for you. They've seen you around, and it's not that they're jealous, but they want to celebrate, and they appreciate the hard work that goes into create something that still exists. But likewise, one of my big things is that I don't mind if I fail tomorrow if I've tried my best. That's why I resonate with what you said. And likewise, if the same thing happened to me, but I still got to do all the same roadmap stuff, but someone else owned it, or whatever, the structure was different, I wouldn't care. I would happily live on 18, 20 grand a year.
Exactly, because for me, it's not about whose name's above the door. That's just ego. That's just ego saying I own a company. That's just like some sort of self glorification. That's not actually what matters. What matters is this exists. This logo exists. This tattoo exists. You know what I mean? And what matters is that this map above my head of a vision that I once had exists. It's still going. And the fact that I no longer own it I couldn't give a monkey's really. Do you know what I mean? As long as I'm able to be part of it and to live it every day and to promote it and stand for what it stands for, being unique, which is why get me logo right, which is why it's in the logo, being unique, being an individual, owning your own skin, everything that I'm professing in this podcast, I can still do that every single day. So literally the only thing that I've lost is debt, which was quite a good thing. My credit rating. So it's a credit rating. And I've lost the title of a director, but like honestly, it really doesn't matter. It's just an online form on company's house. You know what I mean? It doesn't really mean a great deal.
I just want to say thank you to people, Simon and the others who've left kind of comments, but I just want to prove something. Was it with Anne English behind you that you did that doodle?
It was Anne English, yeah.
So this just proof of it is that I met Anne a few years ago, and she raves about this guy that she'd met that makes these wonderful shoes, and they come up with the visual doodle, the brain map, about how to get your vision and put it on paper. And this is someone, without you knowing, in a completely different part of the city, whatever, talking about how proud she is of you, of what they've done. And the point, but people genuinely will love what you kind of do and stuff as well. So before I kind of tear up myself, is there anything else you think that we should throw in or add in, or any recommendations to anyone?
Well, so I'm in the process of now actually creating a book. I'm writing a book based on this, which at the moment is called Sold Out. So it's the story of, it's not really about the business, it's about the evolution of Simon Bourne from that sort of insecure young man through the different careers and professions that I've had, through to creating a company and what that stood for, and then through to losing it and it all sort of falling apart, and then ultimately how I got back to this point. My vision, so back to my vision, my vision for that is that it will be released in April, May time next year, which is roughly when I'll be discharged from being a bankrupt, and hopefully I'll be able to share that story. And the reason I'm releasing this book is I'm going to be dead honest here, for three reasons. The first reason is it's therapeutic for me, so I'm writing down this experience and I'm documenting this experience so that hopefully, the number one reason is that one day my children can read this book and understand that that's the level of pain that their father went through, to hopefully become the success that they will hopefully see, and I think that's really important. That's such a massive thing for them. And I guess the other part of that is I've always had the ambition to write a book, and this kind of like all ties in nicely that this maybe is the good time to do it. The second reason is for everybody else. So it's for the people watching this podcast. It's for people like you, Steve. It's for people who follow me on LinkedIn. It's for people who aspire to have a business but are frightened to do so. It's for people who are frightened to liquidate a business, frightened to go bankrupt. It's for people who are frightened to talk about mental health. My hope is that by releasing this book and sort of sharing this journey and this really personal golden noose story, that they can resonate with that and hopefully find some strength from my journey and ultimately not fear things like bankruptcy, because ultimately it's not that bad. It's not that bad.
I think it will be. Sorry, I was going to say that, but it's often the fear of something, or when in your own head you're running around and you're spiraling, and you're just in a death spiral of making things worse.
Yeah.
Compared to the actual, I think
And people said it to me, Steve. People said it to me in the run up to, so when, bankruptcy is not that bad. It's not that bad. And I didn't understand. I didn't get it. I didn't believe them. I thought, well, how can it not be that bad? You might lose your car. You might lose your house. You might lose all of your assets. I have a camera, a Canon 6D camera, which is maybe worth, I don't know, £600-700. And when I told the bankruptcy estate, because they asked for any assets that you have worth £500 or more, I told them I've got a camera. I thought they're going to take my camera. They didn't. They haven't taken my camera, and you know what? They might come back for it. I don't know, but that's what I thought. I thought everything I own is gonna be gone, and you know what? Everything I own can't be gone, because they can't take this. They can't take this mullet. They can't take that. So yeah, the third reason, by the way, and like I say, in the interest of honesty, is because I think it might make a few quid, and I could do with a few quid. So it's why not? I give so much away for free in terms of social media and my openness and honesty and authenticity and things like that. I think it's about time probably I branded that as something and created a product that would enable people to sort of feel closer and get something from it, more substantial products, and hopefully Sold Out will be that.
No, honestly, I think it's class, and people love the shoes, and I think what really comes across, even the post that you put up before about 2 hours ago, your passion really comes across. And I think what people love, and we've never really spoke before, but the point is, someone that you don't even know, I look at it, I'm like, I can tell, if that makes sense. But there will be thousands of me where I love seeing people that love something. Doesn't matter what it is. Could be Tamagotchis, could be anything.
Yeah.
And the world needs more of those people. Do you know what I mean?
I couldn't agree more. It's like standing for something. When you stand for something, you're a healthier, happier person, and you can only deliver good things for the world. You know what I mean? When you stand for something, and in my case, I stand for uniqueness and creating something, and that's what enables me to be passionate about a one-off pair of handmade shoes. It's not really about the shoe. I love the shoes, don't get me wrong, but it's about the identity. It's the identity that comes with the shoe. And like I always say, I can get just as excited about a plain black pair of brogues as I can a multicolored pair of oxblood, orange, tan monk straps, because it's not about the shoe. It's about the person behind the shoe and what that means for them. So yeah, it's an easy one for me. I stand for something, like say. So
well, thank you for your time. Never change.
Pleasure, really. Thank you very much.
Please give your wife a hug.
I will.
And thank you for your time, and I guess I'll see you soon.
Take care.
All right, bye.
You've got to do it.